Welcome back to the SG Weekly Talk Show. Special guest Brandon Peterman. A lot of people know him in the SA ecosystem. A bit of a national influencer coming out here. Really excited to have Brandon. Brandon and I go way, way back with his starts in elite lawn care. Now a two-time runner-up, or actually two times, last 2 years in the Inc. Top 5,000. So, Brandon, welcome to the SG Weekly Talk Show. I know live and recorded events are possibly not your favorite thing to do, so I really appreciate you joining us. But I couldn't think of anybody else better to bring on to literally tap into the knowledge of growing and scaling a lawn care business, and then to transition into fertilization and weed control. So, Brandon, if people haven't heard of you, haven't met you, if they've been at a live event with you, it's almost impossible to not run into you. So, if you don't mind, just give a quick background on how you cut your teeth in the lawn and landscape industry.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. Yeah, man, I just started like everyone else, just pushing a lawnmower when I was at a very young age. Kind of grew it into full-time job, if you will. Had a lot of customers that wanted weed control and fertilization. I was passing them off to other people. Decided I'm just kind of losing too much money there. Wanted to bring it back in house. It grew up tremendously, and at some point in time, I couldn't focus on the mowing and the spraying altogether. So I parted ways with the mowing and I went full force into the spraying world.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of guys and girls in the industry right now that are really consolidating. So, looking at full scale maintenance, bed and bush, lawn mowing, and fertilization and weed control. If you don't mind, kind of diving in a little bit deeper, what was that transition? Was it an overnight transition? Was it something you did over a course of time? I know we've had other individuals on here, such as Garrett Matthews, that literally had dumped probably over $1 million worth of design build in a weekend, being a quick start in the Colby assessment. Was that something similar in your journey in this, or was it more of a planned out kind of controlled jump into fertilization weed control?
I think I'm kind of like a lot of people. I just ripped the Band-Aid off. Once spraying, I think on the weed control and fertilization side, we got up to about 400,000 in revenue. The mowing was, I don't know, 150, 200,000 in revenue is all it was. And I couldn't be in two places at once. So I just ripped the Band-Aid off. Actually went to the guy that was running my mowing crew. And all I had was one crew, but it was, 60 hours a week, one crew. And I just went to him and said, "Hey, you want to take this over?" He said, "Yeah, sure." And very next week, he took it over and we were done. So that way I could just focus.
Okay, yeah, and as you're looking at this, I know when we first met, I think you were still in the lawn care industry, as far as the maintenance, not 100% fert and weed. And
Mhm.
one of the things I remember of meeting you originally, not that you totally controlled the room or anything like that, but really diving in your adoption to new technologies, one of which automations. I know you were probably one of the first Simple Growth clients. I know Dylan from our sales team was number one, but I bet you were probably in the first 10 to 15 Simple Growth clients. And I remember, we'll get into it in a little bit, but I remember you were in the Service Autopilot Academy, maybe Academy Elite at that point, and you literally grabbed probably 90% of those guys in Elite and said, "Hey, get over to that Simple Growth table. You need to do this and invest in this next shift to technology." So, hey, as the owner of Simple Growth, I can't thank you enough for that move at SA3. But what was the thought process of diving into automations back then? What was that adoption like? And are automations still current? Are they relevant in today's world? And, where do you see those things going in the future?
Yeah. So, when automations came out, we were lucky enough to be able to beta test it. And I enjoyed it. And it was great. It's absolutely amazing for a small company to just let, like with your 20 days to close, or with other simple automations to do the mundane task of an office employee. Now, as we, get a lot larger, it creates us a lot of tickets, so it keeps our office, on track of what they're doing. So that helps out a ton. But yes, I back then, when I see, and I do this every time I'm at like a conference and I see something and people around me, I'm like, "Oh, this is the thing. This is the new thing." Just, it's my quick start. I'm just like Garrett. We quick start shit all the time. So, but yeah,
No, love it. Yeah.
automations.
So,
It's been great.
Awesome. So just kind of dig in there and just kind of start peeling those layers back, Brandon. As you talked about tickets and creating that,
Mhm.
I'm inferring that you're talking about whether it's a homegrown automation or simple growth automation, doesn't really matter. But these automations really aren't here to take people's jobs away. They're really to help, like you mentioned, those mundane and repetitive tasks.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found, at least using automations in my lawn care business and now simple growth, is the tickets or to dos that are assigned are really great as a business owner to make sure is what should be done is assigned to the person with a deadline and accountability. How exactly are you guys using those tickets? Is it more of an accountability factor? What purpose does that serve in the business?
Man, it's more like just a task list, a to-do list. So anything that comes in our system just goes straight into tickets, and our all of our office employees just work straight down all of their tickets every single day. It's just instead of spreadsheets or figuring it out or looking for stuff, it just comes to you naturally. It's super easy. I mean, just like I said, every single one of our office personnel just work straight down every single ticket, no matter what the ticket is. I just keep working down them all until we finish the day.
Gotcha. And that was one thing that I love about the tickets as well. Even in the current day, it's delegated to each specific person from a high level. The business owner can snap in 2 to 3 minutes and say, "Hey, is what's supposed to be getting done today? Are they bottlenecked? If someone's off for the day or a week on vacation, those things can be reassigned." So it's really creating the accountability. And obviously, I think we're in a really special area, Brandon. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I'll kind of mention here in a minute, but we were all introduced into this kind of like ecosystem that I don't think a lot of lawn care and landscape business owners like had the ability to get in. And a lot of it is, well, 99% of it is Jonathan Potoshnik and John Caldwell, the founders of Service Autopilot. They created this first class, groundbreaking technology, but not with only just the automations, but the job costing, the reporting, the scheduling, the mobiles. But what Jonathan did, and I owe a lot of credit to the success that I'm at now, and I think a lot of other people probably do as well, is he created this ecosystem through his roundtable and the academy, and then eventually Academy Elite, that we were surrounded by other like-minded business owners. It wasn't the Chuck in the truck. It wasn't the lowballer. Jonas Olson, John DeCosmaker, Travis Garrett Matthews, Taylor Hansen, DeCosmaker, Marvin Brassfield, that whole crew, the list goes on and on. But that ability where the stars aligned and we were able to be influenced by Jonathan and that thought leader. We'll talk on marketing, but I mean, what effects has that had on your business? And I guess like what were some of the biggest mindset set shifts? I'll be happy to comment on a few after you drop it in there. But I mean, that catapulted me, I would say 10 to 15 years ahead when I met Garrett Matthews and Chad Cranston at that roundtable before the Academy was even in existence. But 2.5 days with that guy, like literally changed my perspective on the whole service industry.
Yeah, he has a big mind, and he allowed us all to come in it, which is great. Like I knew nothing. I literally mowed lawns. That was it. I mowed lawns, and then people asked me to spray yards. I went and sprayed yards. Didn't know anything about marketing, branding, nothing. Once went down there, I went to my first conference, understood what Academy was, and I joined it. And man, it was every month it was a new thing and a new webinar and new ways and new outlooks of how to run a company or how to market a company or I mean, at that point in time, I didn't even know what a Google My Business was when I started with that. Like I was just mowing yards. So it just really let me understand what business is, and it just kept evolving and evolving year after year after year. It was I wouldn't be where I'm at now today if it wasn't for Jonathan or the Academy or Service Autopilot or meeting you or meeting other individuals in the world. It's really cool. We all started kind of in the same area. We're all below a million. It's funny because Jonathan said he was planning on people joining that was $1 million plus companies, and everyone that joined was less than a million. So we had to start like brand new. But we've all 10x, 20x our companies, and so it's actually worked out really well.
Yeah, thankfully he did. I think one of my biggest takeaways was literally like to learn how to market. We had a lot of the finances pieced together. We obviously had started to cut our teeth in the automations. Those things were driving, but I think that's the defining piece is how to actually go out to market, how to sell and create a repeatable system. I didn't know what CAC was, or churn rate, or any of these other fancy terms that were flying around, literally just day to day, putting our head down and grinding by determination to basically bump up to that million mark and kind of get stuck in that bottleneck. So I think Jonathan definitely had played in there. I'll kind of let you speak about some of the things in the marketing, but I guess the most interesting thing is I went into that roundtable with one objective, Brandon, and it was to literally, how do I set up my office so as I scale up and break a million, so it doesn't fall apart? How do I utilize the software the way it was intended? And little did I know, I walked in and he said, hey, these are the different things you need to do in marketing. Here's some samples. Go out and execute it. And oh, by the way, it's a good thing you're here figuring out the office piece, because that spring we dropped, I think, $75,000 or $80,000 in marketing, and the business would have literally self-imploded if he didn't kind of fill those gaps in between. But I'm kind of curious, what are some of your biggest takeaways from Jonathan Potoshnik's of the Lawn Care Millionaire marketing that you guys took away from that?
I mean, and just in marketing is just, I mean, Google, like the most simple thing in the world, like Google My Business, or reviews. Like you have to have reviews. You have to be on every platform. You have to be on your Facebook, your nowadays Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Google, Instagram, Twitter. Like you have to be on everything. LinkedIn. Like it's just part of the game. Like if you don't do it, then you're not going to be seen. But he taught us that. He taught us how to direct mail correctly. He taught us tons of stuff when it comes to marketing. And it's not just even marketing, but he had guest speakers come in. We got Marcus Sheridan. We had Jim Houston. I think you had him at your conference, didn't you? Last weekend, or am I?
Yeah, Jim came down and dropped a 4-hour knowledge bomb. But yeah, Jason Cupp as well. We've had a few times.
He's amazing. Marcus Sheridan, Jim Houston, Mike Michalowicz, just to understand, like, profit first and the whole profit first. But it's just, he kept bringing in people to help us understand different aspects of company. It was more how to run a business and not just how to mow a yard. So it was a lot different, his outlook in what he did. And that's why we're all where we're at now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I couldn't agree with you more. It was interesting. Like, we could be out selling men's suits at this point. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, literally, he taught us the fundamentals of business. Some of the things I think were key takeaways for me is literally that lead letter was really huge for us, and how to do that Dan Kennedy long style script. I had never heard of Dan Kennedy. A lot of these young kids coming out of college today that are applying for marketing jobs, we're currently looking for a new marketer at Simple Growth. Abby's moving on back to her family business, and a lot of these folks we're interviewing don't have the foundational skills taught at college that we learned through Jonathan and that academy. So it was really interesting, the fact that lead letter, that one flyer where you put your face on it with the biggest guarantee, and if you want a no call, no show,
a lot of people still using
contractor, sorry, we can't do business. It works. I would literally plaster my face maybe with a little better hairline and say, hey, we're standing behind this. But that was the game. And I will tell you, my local competitors absolutely hated me. That here's this guy who actually has the balls to put his picture on a flyer and says money back guarantee. And if we can't fix it, we're going to hire our competitor to fix it of your choice. I think minds were blown at that point. But man, we were so different, very similar to that Marcus Sheridan They Ask You Answer, just being different. Like I just got a flyer. Actually, I will hide the innocent, but literally we do these services.
Yeah.
Literally in the mailbox yesterday. This is what all the marketing copy looks like. And it just doesn't work. But man, when you're different and there's a methodology behind it, there's a huge conversion. And as you're dialing in there, Brandon, there's a lot of talk based on marketing and employees and all the headaches that are normally around a business. But right now, I feel like maybe the market is self-correcting itself, or the people kind of got fat and lazy with all the PPP money and some of the other government benefits. They're starting to get put back in check. But what are your thoughts on the economy right now? Because we've got people that are killing it in the masterminds group, and there's other people that are calling our consulting business for job costing and estimating, like literally about to go out of business and lose their house. And it doesn't seem like anybody's in the middle. So it's either like businesses are thriving, they're fully staffed, they're making money, or it's absolute disparity. Like, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, there's kind of two sides to it. A lot of people aren't priced correctly. So you got to get your prices correctly and charge correctly. You have to have dense routes. You have to like understand that business side of it. And then once that happens, then you can pay correctly. And you gotta be able to pay correctly. We changed over to pay performance based model. Um, we're paying really well. Our technicians are making well above average money for our area, and they're loving it. And we're able to bring in A players. We have a company that we're using to help do our hiring, our marketing for hiring, our back end marketing, if you will. And they're bringing in just all A players, and these guys are hungry. They want money. They're doing shit correctly. It's they're very process driven, and they're able to feed their family on a very good living wage. So it there's a lot to it. There's no secret game, but it's just, in my opinion, you have to be able to pay them. If you can't pay them, why are they going to work for you? But if you can pay them really good money and you can pick out the best of the best, and I mean, we have tons of people want to come work for us. We have a bench that I don't know how big it is, but we're having to turn down people right now. So
Wow, if you're listening, that is the difference right there. And one of our last shop tours we just did with the Simple Growth Masterminds was Tommy Mello's A1 garage door. And
that'd
the
be awesome.
biggest thing that like literally slapped me in the face, I was sitting in the front row with Tommy, was A players hate B players. You
Hmm.
need to hire A players,
Hmm.
and get them to be part of it.
Yeah, they get mad. They get mad. Like someone calls in, they're like, dude, show up to work. Like they get mad at each other. Like they don't mind picking up their stuff because it's pay per performance, but they get mad. They'll come to any of us on the leadership team and be like, get them off our team. We don't want him here anymore. It's amazing. It's crazy. Just the difference in culture is crazy.
Yeah, we were crazy enough. We implemented a Callahan's lawn care P for P at that rate. It was actually called Piece Rate
Yeah.
brand, but I actually flew Jonathan, not of Service Autopilot, but Jonathan of Clip Lawn Care, who ran their lawn care division from Clip Software. And at that point, in 97, I think it was, or 96, I went to Barnes and Noble, and I'll never forget Bill Crawford. I saw him at GIE when we were there last fall, but Bill Crawford literally handed me a floppy disk. And some of you young guys watching probably have no idea what
Yeah.
that is per YouTube, but it
That
was literally a
clip
disk you
was the
stick in your
thing.
computer and it lived in your computer.
Yeah, Clip was the thing, and then
But yes,
I almost signed up with Clip and then went with Service Autopilot only because it was web based, and I'm glad I made the move I did.
yeah, it Clip's great software. As it evolved, just some things have changed. But like Service Autopilot didn't even exist when I bought that. But the crazy thing is, Jonathan came out and actually showed me how to implement P for P, which used to be piece rate.
Okay.
And he said, Mike, I think you're running at only 70% efficiency. And I was like, this guy's nuts. Like,
Yeah.
well, I paid him out, so I got to at least try it. But I'm like, I've been on those trucks. Like, I was still helping the guys occasionally at that point. And you know what? Within 5%, about 25%, he was dead nuts looking at it. But what we saw overnight is the culture changed. The
Mhm.
B players literally got ejected by the A players. And the guy saw a significant pay increase. I'll never forget Carlos, our head guy, when we first implemented it. We tried it just with his crew under Jonathan's from Clip Lawn Care's advice. But try it with one crew, let the other crew see the results, and then we'll do a 2-week trial to get everybody on board. But Carlos was backed up all day with rain Monday. So he went out Tuesday and he worked and cut everything from Monday and started his Tuesday list. So he worked literally sun up to sundown. And he called me when he got back to the shop and he says, Mike, look, based on these hours, I'm going to get paid to 11 o'clock tonight. Like, is that for real? And I said, well, did you do all the jobs? Like, yeah. I'm like, am I going to get any callbacks? Is the quality there? He goes, no, I'm good. We never get callbacks on our crew. I'm like, then you're going to get paid to 11 o'clock. It was crazy. By Friday, when he got that paycheck of the following week, it was like it spread like wildfire through the
Mhm.
company. And there was a couple folks that literally kept their pulses to 40 hours to get that overtime. And within a few weeks, they literally just
They're out
weeded
the door.
themselves out. A
Yep.
complete change of the culture. I'm assuming that's what you saw as well.
Yep. Yeah. I waited forever to do it. And we started it January 1st this year, and it's a life changer. And it just, like I said, even when you go back to hiring, like the company we're using to do our back end marketing, like they're trying to give us more people. It's amazing. We have too many people in training right now. We're having to like turn him down and say, hold on, which is also nuts. We went from I don't know, we have 20 something trucks that we run around town. And literally last year we bought 7 to add to the fleet. And we're not even going to use them all. Like there's going to be 3 or 4 that's still setting that we won't need till next year just because of the production that's picked up because they want more money. And they're doing it all in the same amount of time. It stopped out gas station breaks, everything. So they're getting 1.5 times the amount of work done in the same time that they were just doing 1 day's worth of work. It's insane. I mean, I would recommend that to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody, but I would say if you're actually looking to grow and scale your business and be able to compete, provide a living wage, and then some, it really is the only way to go. And I think Jim Houston was breaking down the stats. A lot of his clients now are starting to adopt this pay per performance or P for P. And Jim was saying when he was doing his financials at the Simple Growth Masterminds down in Cocoa Beach last week, he was saying on average, he's seeing an 18 to about 22% increase for the A players in their pay. And obviously, the other thing we need to keep in mind is if we're not doing FERT and weed, and even with FERT and weed in the beginning of the season, your productivity probably goes down a little bit on the first round or so. But when you average the seasonality of a whole year, that's what he is actually seeing. And it's crazy that we did this in the early 2000s and it's now just starting to catch on. But I will tell you what, my lawn care company wouldn't have been able to survive without it.
Yeah, I wish I'd have done it a lot sooner. It's been a game changer for our company.
And Brandon, you mentioned something I think that's really interesting. You called it in-house marketing. But this is something I see with a lot of businesses. They will invest a ton of money in client acquisition, but it sounds like you've got a budget and a marketing system, whether it's in-house or subcontracted out to a vendor, to actually go out and market and recruit almost if a customer, your actual employees. Would you mind kind of touching base on that? Because I think a lot of people are the shiny objects, all the new customers, but we really need to spend as much, if not more, in my opinion, on I like the term in-house marketing. I may borrow that, but what does that look like?
You got front-end marketing and you got back-end marketing. You got to spend money on both places. Back-end marketing is your employees and front-end marketing is your customers. You have to make sure you market for the correct employees and get the correct people in there and training and everything in order to service the yards properly. And then you got to market for that new customer. So yes, you have to spend money both ways. There's a lot of people that they only spend money on front end marketing, and you can't do that because then you don't have the proper people to take care of the customer, and you just never it's running on a treadmill. It just never works. So you got to spend money equally, maybe not completely equally, but somewhere around there in order to service your customers properly.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's some of the biggest issues. On Callahan's Corner, I like to go into some of the Facebook groups each week and grab a few questions and answer them. And one of the questions or concerns of one of his contracts, I can't find employees. I got too much work. I don't know how to service it. My answer was pretty similar to what you're saying. Like, hey, you need to take part of that and you actually need to invest in that back end marketing, actually build that virtual bench and be ready to go, almost like a sports team. So when the guys and girls on the field maybe are coached up and coached out, you got a replacement. Or if you hit a massive spike in sales like you're doing in growth wise, you've got those people ready to go up and join the field. So pretty interesting stuff here. And I know you got a very compressed schedule, so I don't want to hold you hostage, but as we're kind of nearing the end of this, I want to dig into some of the analytics, because from going to 2 to 3 to 4 million and beyond, I think that there's probably certain metrics you look at. And I guess one of the things that blows my mind is a lot of businesses sometimes will get to 1 million, maybe 1.5 million out of sheer luck and determination. Right market, right ecosystems. Yeah. Let's face it, post-COVID or during COVID there, if you couldn't grow a business then, you're never going to grow a business. So I think a lot of people got there, but as they're coming in, even through our coaching division or just talking about some of the videos, they're like, why would I have to look at the same exact set of numbers every week or every month? It's boring. I don't see the point of it. Is there certain metrics that you're looking at, and what's the frequency? Because I think that seems to be a massive disconnect in our industry.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I look at. I mean, I have a CFO now, and so he runs me a budget. It's all percentage based, everything. I mean, your cogs are super important. You know what you're buying your chemical for and what you're paying your laborers for. Indirect payroll is super important. Or do you have too many on staff? Not enough on staff? Like that should be a correct percentage. Obviously your EBITDA at the end, just all of your subscriptions, everything. So I go through our budget nonstop. Like I actually have a tab on my computer right now. I was going through it this morning, but you got to make sure that your percentages are correct. You got to make sure your marketing percentage is correct. You got to make sure. I mean, even just something as simple like that I learned a long time ago, for mortgage or rent on a building, you shouldn't pay more than 6%. 6% of revenue should not go to that. You want to get it as low as you can, but if you go over 6%, you're bleeding. I didn't realize that. In growth mode, we have hit 6.5%, but after our end of our 3-year lease, we were down to 2.6. I knew it was coming. We adjusted for it, but there's certain numbers like that I've learned over the years that I'm constantly staring at and understanding and making sure our budget's correct, and at the end of the year that's correct too. Something like a lot of people want to pay off their trucks all the time. Like I want to pay cash for my truck. Well, I don't know. Like we'll buy a truck. It'll be $1,000 a month payment. Our guy will go work and make $1,600 a day on our truck. In 3/4 of a day, it paid that month's payment. And we keep going. Like why am I going to waste every single dollar in the bank account? Like it's good debt. So you just got to understand what's good debt, what's bad debt, what's bleeding, what's not. There's tons and tons of percentage base. I mean, Jim Houston goes over every single bit of that. So it's just something that's very, very important, is to understand your financials of your company. If you don't, you're not going anywhere. You're running on a treadmill.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Obviously we didn't even talk about this pre-show, but I wanted to at least, as a guy who's scaled, you're scaled multiple 7 figures here, Inc. top 5,000, 2 years running now. I think there's certain recipes for success. And I guess what really scares me is a public service announcement. If you're watching this and you don't have your QuickBooks reconciled to your budget by the 10th of the following month, you're not looking at these things daily, if not weekly. You're really playing Russian roulette with your family and your business. Just the fact that there's $150,000 or $200,000 cash in your operating account doesn't mean that you're profitable. In the early days after that divorce I went through, I started watching that bank account balance. Brandon, I don't know if you heard the story, but by the time I got to November, December, like everything up to that point, the normal cash flow, there was, 150,000 liquid cash in that operating account. That's about where it was at that point. I got to November, December, I had lost $70,000 that summer. Tammy and Christine were so good at getting the cash in. We were running those cards daily and weekly that the cash was coming in before the bills, and it didn't catch me to the end of the season. But that, thank God it was a great winter and we plowed our way to profits. But I mean, that's the scary part of this here is, I think Garrett Matthews used the best analogy the other day. We're at the Masterminds group those looking at those key KPIs and those percentages, kind of like your dashboard on your car. Like how fast are you going? Are you low on oil? Are you overheating? Is your tire pressure right? Like you're not going to take a 3 or 4 hour road trip with the family and not check to make sure you got gas and at least the tire pressure and you're not overheating on that dashboard. So, that's what it's scary part is a lot of business owners, even beyond $1 million, are literally running it without looking at that dashboard and literally going on a 3-hour trip every day. Eventually that engine's going to blow or something's going to happen. So I really appreciate you hitting on that. So I guess as we close, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's crazy. Like people that, get their company all the way to $1 million and try to run it themselves. And then they hit that $1 million mark and they don't realize they need to hire, someone in a leadership position, that operations manager, that office manager, someone in indirect payroll. And then they fail after $1 million. They just, and usually it's because they're trying to pull more cash out of the company than it can sustain. But yeah, that $1 million mark is where everyone either makes it or breaks it. And, obviously I had a great mentor and a lot of great people surrounding me to understand what that $1 million mark meant and who you had to hire, what was your next hire, how much it was going to cost, and where it was going to fall on the profit loss statement and the indirect payroll, and why you needed it, why it was so important, but how much it was going to cost the company. So I had a lot of people around me, and also just hitting back on it, like pay yourself correctly. You know, read Mike McAllowit's profit loss book. Like, pay yourself correctly. If you live on that, you understand what you can pay yourself. You're not overpaying yourself to where you get into that bind. And that's the problem the majority of people have, is they get into that bind, and that's not where you want to be in life.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it too. So, Profit First by Mike McCallitz, if you're watching, definitely. I mean, I forgot about Mike because we just take it for granted. But we run it. We run it, twice a month. We do our profit or distribution, all the accounts. That cash flow in the operating account is not, robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're in different areas. I mean, literally before I started Profit First. So that's something I didn't start in the early days like I should have with Piece Rate. But I remember I was driving down 390, one of the major highways in upstate New York here. My accountant Greg calls me and goes, "Hey Mike, where are you at?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm 390 by the next exit at Bar Trotta." He goes, "Oh, get off and pull in the parking lot." So I figure, my accountant's at the bar. We're gonna have a quick drink and review our quarterly taxes, right? I'm like, it doesn't get any better than this. So I pull over. He goes, "Are you parked?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be right in." He goes, "No, I'm not there." He goes, "By the way, you owe like 43 or $44,000 tomorrow." And I'm like, "What?"
Ooh,
So we pushed some money around. We made it work, but that was my eye opener. The next quarter, I said, we're going to read Profit First again and institute at least a couple
right.
of these key accounts. So never again was I going to have my tax money and projected tax money in my operating account. But in the early days, you had your projected tax, your sales tax, everything was living in that
Yeah.
operating account, and it looked like you were living fat on the hog. And to
Mhm.
your business owners now, myself included, some points back in the day, we'd start pulling some cash and distributions, thinking, well, we got all this cash, but really, it's not ours. And one
Yeah.
of the things you hit on there that was really interesting is you said after a million, there's some issues because we need to bring on some leaders. And what we found with a lot of research in the masterminds group where we brought in that elite methodology is there's really four things past a million that you're going to look at. First one is people and systems, and leadership and culture.
Mhm.
And what I soon realized, and didn't necessarily realize in the moment, is my leadership skills at a million or just before a million were not the leadership skills I needed to go beyond a million. And to make it even compounding worse, we brought these other individuals in and we brought a lot of them up through the ranks from crew to crew leader to production manager.
Mhm.
I mean, with all due respect, a lot of those folks had no business being in a leadership role because they didn't have the leadership skills.
Right.
So I'm kind of curious, did you do anything in the business yourself to upgrade your leadership skills? I probably know the answer to that. And then was there anything on the second fold of that with your leadership team? Is there anything for ongoing education or things they're being exposed to upgrade that leadership skill as you grow?
I would say there's one person that started out at the bottom of the company and worked their way to the top. Actually, two, my office manager. But we call her the librarian. She's just knows everything. She knows all the process procedures. She's high driven. Um, but my other one's my sales manager, and we've moved him around to every position, and he just excels in it. He just has that mindset, so he's great. The guy that actually runs my company started out as the lowest level office person that we have underneath my current office manager, and he made it to here and then past her, and he runs the company. Um, but he had previously ran a big company before. Um, as it was a local Napa. Is actually what it was. So they had trucks running around, delivering car parts and whatnot, and he ran that company. So when he started here, he took a major, you know, his pay went, drastically down to just be a glorified receptionist, if you will, an office person at CSR. But after a little while, he started asking more and more and more tasks until eventually he became an operations manager and then became the integrator of our company.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So I don't want to discourage anybody watching this. If you've got a base level employee starting out as a technician with weed whacker, that individual, I believe in Jonathan City Turf, the gentleman who started out on the crew is actually running the company. One
Yes.
thing that comes to mind is Clayton Mask. He's a CEO and co-founder of Peak. I think they're running about 200 million now in recurring revenue. But one of the things that really struck me different about Clayton Mask is he said, I am not the leader that I need to be from where we're at to where we're going, but I'm going to reinvest into myself with education and mentors and coaches. So when we get to that 150 million or 200 million, I will have that leadership capability and skill set. So don't think that you can't continue to grow, Brandon. But I think you also hit on it. Sometimes the people who get us to a certain part may not get us to the next level. And sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow. I know I've had to do it a few times in both companies. Because man, they love the company, they're doing 100%, but just sometimes they hit that capacity ceiling.
Yep. There's definitely a capacity. Everyone has one. You just got to see if it works for you. I mean, their capacity could be way past where your company's currently at, and you're good, or their capacity could be at their job and they can't make it to the next level. And yeah, it just doesn't work. Sometimes it's not a good fit. It is what it is.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you joining us here. I know you got a compressed schedule. Want to thank you for joining us and everything you've done for the service industry and just being really a leader amongst leaders in this group of SA and everybody else around. So can't wait to see you again at one of the conferences live. SG Weekly Talk Show will come back live again next week. Brandon Peterman of Elite Lawn Care. Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.